Good morning, and welcome to the Summative Update presentation. My name is Rebecca Bowers, and I have my colleague Chad Portney here for the second half of the presentation. We have a variety of new and exciting updates to the summative assessment system that we're very excited to share with you today. So let's start with some of the highlights from the 2018 administration of the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, also known as the CASP. A total of approximately 6.4 million math and ELA tests were completed cumulatively, with over 3 million students completing a summative assessment this year. Something to be proud of. On May 8th, 2018, the CASP had its highest concurrent users with a total of 570,745 students. So yes, give a round of applause. So now let's look at what's new for 2018-19. A contextual help function and online manuals will now be available through the Test Operations Management System, also known as the TOMS. Several functional updates have also been made to TOMS to improve a user's experience. The completion status reports, which my colleague Chad will discuss, have been enhanced to provide more search options and filter options. And then lastly, Chad will also go over electronic score reporting, which is very exciting. It's being rolled out this year, which will provide local educational agencies, LEAs, with a variety of options for making student score reports, or SSRs, available to families. So one of the first features implemented this year is the online manual for the TOMS. This allows us the opportunity to provide more comprehensive help to TOMS. The content of the manuals will be released in stages as they are developed and approved. And as part of an effort to improve the timeliness and efficiency of sharing information about CASP, selecting TOMS or help in the TOMS menu will open the newly designed online manual in a new window. Here's an example of the help overview screen that comes up for users. From here, users can navigate to TOMS in the left menu and find help on specific TOMS topics as shown in this screen. The content currently available in the system addresses the early stages of test administration, such as setting up users and test windows. Additional content will be added throughout the 2018-19 administration, including accessibility, interim assessments, the digital library, and additional resources. It's important to note that PDF versions of manuals will still be produced and posted on casp.org. Resources that were previously available on the Help tab, such as voice pack installation, verification files, videos, and PDF documents, can be accessed directly by selecting Secure Materials from the TOMS left navigation bar. Here's an example of the Secure Materials page. You can see the submenus for interim materials, voice packs, and the California alternate assessments, also known as the CAA materials. In addition to the online help manual, question marks will now appear next to relevant fields in TOMS. When the icon is selected, the user will be taken to the relevant portions of the online TOMS help manual. Since the manual opens in a separate screen, users will be able to see both the TOMS screen and the help relevant to that screen at the same time. So let's move on to TOMS updates for 2018-19. Upon first use of TOMS using a particular web browser, you will now be prompted to request a security code that will be sent directly to your email address. This is a one-time, once you receive the code must be used within 15 minutes to gain access to TOMS. It's a one-time process unless you have use of a different browser, which in that case, you must requires a new password be requested and the process be completed again. With the advent to the two-step authentication process, a security question and answer are no longer required. The system will also now support users having multiple roles in more than one organization with only one user ID. Yes, very exciting. So users who are responsible for multiple roles in more than one organization they no longer need multiple user accounts and email addresses. They can select the appropriate role upon login. A filtering feature allows a user with multiple roles in multiple organizations to filter by role or the organization they're associated with. The system will also allow users who access both CASP TOMS and the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, the LPAC TOMS, to select the program and role when logging in. The CDE and its contractors are still working toward a single sign-on between all CASP programs, such as the Interim Reporting System and TOMS. The dashboard shows the user logged on as information in the upper right-hand corner of all TOMS screen, as shown here. A new option has been added to the left navigation bar for switching the program if the user has access to both CASP and LPAC programs. The button will not appear if the user is associated with only one of the programs. It is also important to note that the dashboard is a place where users monitor their testing windows and scoring completion progress. Last year, the CDE received several contacts from LEAs that wanted extensions to their testing windows after the window had closed. So please, please remember, we can only grant those extensions if your window is still open. Updates have also been made to the user management upload process. As previously mentioned, multiple roles can now be associated with a single user ID to one or more organizations. The delete role value has been removed from the role and organization drop-down list, and column G has been added to specify if the selected role must be deleted from the system. Multiple add and delete actions can be performed for the same user ID using the same upload template. And finally, one or more multiple roles can be associated to one or more multiple organizations in the single template. Students who previously completed the California Science Test, also known as the CAST, or the California Alternate Assessment, the CAA in Science, will not be registered for a science assessment in TOMS. Testing information for students who have previously taken a science test is now banked, and information on the science test record will be available on the test assignment screen as shown here. This pop-up message will appear when a link is selected on the test mode screen for that student. The message includes the tested LEA, the tested school, the tested grade, and the tested date. Here's a sample for CAST. The CAA version will show each performance task or PT as well. This year, CalPADS has eliminated the ungraded secondary, the US, and ungraded elementary, the UE grade designations. Previously, the assessed grade for a student with a UE or a US designation was calculated by subtracting 5 from their age as of September 1st. This process was referred to as the rule of 5. This now means that any 12th grader who has not already taken the science assessment will be required to take it regardless of their age. The LEA test assignment report has new columns for EL exempt and student status in TOMS. The EL exempt indicator tells you whether a newly arrived English learner is eligible for a one-time exemption from testing in ELA. However, they are still required to test in math. Student status can be either active or inactive. Active means the student is currently assigned to a school in CalPADS, and there is also an EL exempt indicator in TOMS on the student record. The column indicating if the Spanish SSR has been requested for the student has been removed from this report. In a later release of TOMS, there will be a separate report for the LEAs to provide information on SSRs requested in additional languages such as Spanish, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Filipino. There will also be separate columns for CSA field test and CSA operational assessment. Speaking of the CSA, the new section for the California Spanish assessment has been added to the test registration screen for both the field test and the operational assessment. A few updates have been made to the usability, accessibility, and accommodations guidelines, also known as the UAAG from Smarter Balanced. The Streamline resource has been changed from an accommodation to a designated support. This resource provides a streamlined interface of the test in an alternate, simplified format in which the items displayed or are displayed beneath the stimuli. Students may also have access to an electronic device for medical purposes, such as the glucose monitor, as a designated support. The device may include a cell phone. The student should be monitored, however, to ensure that the phone is only is being used for medical purposes. A separate setting is strongly recommended for students who need access to this type of device. The CDE is working with its vendors that work with these medical devices to implement a secure way for students to access the monitoring application. Scratch paper, including whiteboards and graph paper, is currently a non-embedded universal tool available to all students. However, digital graph paper has been added as an additional option. There are two options for digital graph paper. One is for students to have a separate device for accessing the graph paper online, and the other option is to download the graph paper onto the student's device and then allow the student to access it by setting permissive mode for the student. And based on feedback from the field, an additional resource we have is the Accessibility Resources Module 1, which has been developed and posted on CASP.org. This training module provides an overview of the accessibility resources available for CASP. A link to the module may be found in the presentation resource list. So this concludes my section of the presentation. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Chad Portney.
Hello, my name's Chad Portney, and some of you may know me if you've ever called with a test security question or cursed my name if you've ever been denied a grace period extension in the appeals system, because I do deny a lot of those. But speaking of stairs, let's talk about stairs integration. So another exciting improvement that we have for you is the integration of stairs into TOMS. In the past, as you know, stairs resided in a separate system outside of TOMS. Now, you'll go into TOMS to enter your security incident, and your user information will automatically be populated down to everything except the school if you represent multiple schools, which you'll have to select. You can also update your contact information if you have more current contact information you'd like us to use. The system is automatically going to generate the appeal once the test security incident has been reported. So you're not going to have to go into TIDE anymore to generate separate appeals, which means you won't have to upload SSIDs more than once, which I know was pretty difficult for some people with a lot of kids involved. The system will also automate certain approvals. So either you'll submit something that says no action is needed. Something was left on the walls and we just want to report it. You may submit something that says an accessibility issue. Student didn't get their designated support or accommodation per their IEP. That could potentially automatically create the appeal and then it would automatically be approved. Then there would be a third classification of things that we at the CDE would review, which are basically the same things we're reviewing now. Invalidates, grace period extensions, accidental summative access. So much better system. I think you'll find it much more streamlined. We're rolling it out soon, and we've been working closely with ETS on this. Okay, let's talk about completion status reports. So during 2018 testing, both CalTAC and the CDE received a variety of calls from LEA coordinators who could not access completion status during testing. They had to wait till it was the evening and go on and get the completion status to be able to submit the correct appeal. And so we didn't want that to happen again. For 2019, the American Institute of Research, which created the TIDE system, has implemented additional performance improvements that should eliminate this problem, and they're going to continue to monitor the system this year to see if there's anything else they can streamline. There's just a lot of hits on the system at the same time, and it was slowing things down. In addition, several improvements have been made to the actual completion status reports. Hit that. Let's see here. There we go. So, one of the things that I know the field has been asking for is the ability to select and deselect multiple schools so you can create more customized completion status reports. Another is the ability to select multiple grades in the same or deselect them. And there's also options where you can search by first and last name of a particular student, which I know a lot of people have been looking for. My personal favorite, and I think a lot of you will be excited about this one, is you can search an individual student's completion status by SSID. In my opinion, this is one of the things that's been missing from the system in the past, so I'm very happy that it's been added. You can also upload a file with a whole bunch of SSIDs and search for them all at once. So exciting improvements to completion status. I think this should hopefully make your life a little easier. Okay, now the big topic you've all been waiting for, student score reports. So, for electronic student score reports, the CDE contractor conducted focus groups to generate input on redesigned extended SSRs. The design is going to come to the state board at some point, and the enhanced SSRs will now be available in 5 languages. Not necessarily each language that's shown on this slide, but it will include, obviously, English and Spanish, which we already have, and Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Filipino are the 3 new languages we've added. Also, the hyperlinks to parent resources on the student score report will no longer have to be typed into the browser. Now they'll be able to click on the hyperlink and it will take them directly to the resource that we're trying to steer them to. So, in the past, we've kind of talked about how there's 4 options for student score reports, but really I want to emphasize that the first option is our primary recommendation, and the other 3 are if you don't feel like you're quite there yet. So you can provide access to SSRs through parent portals, which will allow parents to view it online, print it if they want. The electronic delivery of the SSR from the cloud to a parent portal is designed to work with all SIS systems. We've reached out to all the SIS vendors. We've been doing testing with the system. We've had a successful pilot test of the system in this last year. So they're aware that we're working on this. Both Aries and Infinite Campus were part of our spring 2018 pilot, which was open to all vendors, and we had vendors who have their own homegrown systems who also participated in our pilot. So this is going to work with all sorts of platforms. All vendors have been made aware of this new process, and the vendor testing is scheduled for this fall. We have a schedule. We're going to work with each vendor of parent portal and SIS systems to make sure that everything's working the way you expect it to. A secondary option is to download PDF versions of the student score reports from TOMS, which is something you already have available to you. We've added some improvements to the download process, so it's easier for you to get smaller groups of student score reports. And if you're going to provide these electronically, for example, attach them to an email, we recommend that you either password protect PDF or use some sort of system like a parent portal or some other online system where the parent can go and be verified who they are, so you're not just sending it over the open internet. A third option would be to download these PDF versions from TOMS, print them out, and make them available locally. That would be for LEAs that don't have a lot of parents yet in their parent portal, but we really suggest that you use this to try to leverage more access to your parent portal. All the student score reports will now include parent addresses. You don't have to pay extra for the parent address anymore. They'll all contain them, so if you do choose this option, it'll already be on there for you and you can mail them. Finally, LEAs that do not have the resources to implement the parent portal option or one of the other two options that I just talked about can purchase printed SSRs from ETS. It's going to cost $1.48 for a set of 2 SSRs, the English and then whatever the primary language is. But that is something that is kind of a final option that we're giving you if you just don't feel you can implement any of these other ones right now. But we really encourage you to work with your vendor, if you have one, to see if this is possible for you for this coming year, because we've really tried to prepare vendors. Some of you K through 12 LEAs, I'm sure, are a little worried that, well, I've got a lot of parents who are on my 7 through 12 parents who are on my portal, but my K through 6 parents, they don't even go on the portal because there's not as much information for them there. So we know that you could be implementing a combination approach. It may not be all electronic. Some could be sent out. The proposed regulations make it clear that the LEA where the student was enrolled at the end of the state testing window is responsible for making the SSR available to the parent. This could include providing access at the site. You could have a parent center already, and you could encourage the parent to come in, view the SSR, print it, and take it with them. We don't recommend that as your only option. We strongly encourage you to work with your vendor to see if you can implement a way to get it out to parents, but if you want to fulfill your obligation in the regulations, you can at least make them available to them within the amount of time of them becoming available in the system, because there's no longer a 90% ship date in the system anymore. These are just going to come into the system on a rolling basis. A colleague of mine recently received a call from an LEA that is already making student score reports available in the parent portal. They're not doing it through this option. I think they're uploading the PDFs. But the issue is that's the only way they're providing them. And they have students who have already left the school, like 12th graders, which some of you have for science. You still need to be able to contact those parents. You're not really giving all parents an opportunity to access it if you're only making it available online to parents who aren't part of your system anymore, because most of the times when a kid is exited from your system, then parents lose access as well. So we obviously, as I said, prefer that you use the primary first option, but we understand that that may take a year or two. Here's our key messages for electronic reporting. You may have seen some of these before. It's convenient. Receiving a child's test results will no longer rely on a one-time mailing that may or may not reach the family. Now they'll be able to securely access it. Current and historical SSRs have been loaded for the last 3 years, so they'll be able to see historical SSRs. They can use smartphones or tablets if your parent portal works with those. And it's all securely in the cloud, so there's no concern that you're going to lose track of paper copies. I also know there's a concern about placing a copy in the CUME folder. The regulations don't actually require a paper copy in the CUME folder. They just require that you keep a record of the score, hopefully electronically. So there's no need to print out an extra one just for the purposes of putting it in the CUME folder. It's prompt. Families with parent portal accounts will have earlier access to the child score reports. As you know, in the past, you've had to wait for ETS to ship you the score reports, then you have to ship them out to the parents. A lot of times parents aren't getting them until September or October, depending on when the student tested and when your window ended. So now they'll have immediate access to it. It's efficient. District costs associated with shipping, postage, staff time to package and mail paper student score reports will be greatly reduced or potentially eliminated for some of you. You can continue to communicate using traditional reports in cases where it's necessary or more appropriate. And as mentioned previously, the parent address is now provided. You don't have to pay extra for that. So that will also reduce your costs. It's more engaging. One of the intents of moving to electronic score reports is to drive parents to your parent portal. If you don't have a lot of enrollment right now, we want to increase the use. Make it kind of a one-stop shop where they can go and get test results, potentially attendance, your student score report, other types of things. So we're hoping this will drive more parents to want to use your parent portal if you don't have as high an enrollment. It's more accessible, as I said before, for non-English speaking families. We've added 3 more language and we're looking to add more in the future. As I said, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Filipino have been added. The language selection is driven by the student's primary language in CalPADS. That means if the student's primary language is one of these 5 languages, English, Spanish, or the other 3 I just mentioned, then you'll automatically get a second report in that language. It will be possible to override that language before the score report is generated, and you can order other languages if you do the ancillary service through ETS. We strongly recommend you do not change the primary language in CalPADS just to try to drive a new language on the SSR. You can override it in TOMS. Our LPAC people are using that data. We don't want you to change that just for the purposes of this. You can override it in TOMS, and that'll be rolled out in a later phase. They're contemporary. It provides us with an opportunity to deliver more dynamic and detailed information about a student's progress because they're not going to be limited to one sheet of paper. Now, big question. What kind of help can I get to determine if this is going to work for me and which option is best? Well, the CDE and their communication contractors have been working on a series of resources to help guide LEAs in making the decision on how to proceed, including tools on determining the financial impact of implementing different options. We're planning monthly informational sessions to assist LEAs in this transition. This includes the technology webcast in October and another webcast in November that's specifically about electronic reporting. Also, California Technical Assistance Center, or CalTAC, will have reps specifically trained on electronic reporting questions. So if you're having problems in the middle of the year, you'll be able to call them and you'll be routed to somebody who can help them. There's a new web page that we've added to the CAS.org site that talks about these 6 key messages and also the 4 options. And it contains a little process that you can look at, some key bullet points about which option might be best for you to choose. What are the conditions in your LEA? You may want to consider a hybrid approach. As I said before, you may still end up sending out paper copies to 3 through 6th grade parents. But after that, the 7 through 12, they may already have access to the parent portal, so you can just do those electronically, and I'm sure that's going to save you a lot of money in postage. Questions that may be useful in determining the best approach for your district are shown on this site. I encourage you to look at this site. I encourage you to look at the October webcast. We encourage you to bring your technology coordinator with you to those webcasts so they know exactly what's going on. Because one of the additional things you're going to be responsible for is providing a credential that you're going to get through TOMS to your parent portal vendor once every 3 months. And it's just a code that you're going to send to them that lets them know, that allows the systems to talk to each other so parents can see those electronic score reports. All right, I think that's all I have. Yes? Thank you very much. Feel free to write your questions on the yellow cards that are coming around. And there's also a table out in the lobby that's going to be staffed by Michael McDaniel, and you might find me out there as well. If you have questions about electronic reporting, you have concerns, you don't think it's going to work, you're worried that your vendor's not ready, feel free and come to talk to us, and we'll help you out. Thank you very much.